Hey everyone, me Kevin here. I thought I was done for the day making videos, but no, Apple was hacked. Bad financial news came out for Apple on top of that, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about product reviews for Apple. Now this is gonna be, not specific product related. I'm gonna sort of talk ecosystem wide more towards the end of the video. First, we're gonna talk about the news and the financial news, and then we'll get a little bit into my opinion on some of these products. So even though I'm not a tech review YouTube channel, you're gonna get a little bit of tech review here for whatever you actually think that's worth. I'll just give you my raw and unedited thoughts on Tesla, mostly unedited since I really don't edit my videos. But anyway, the first piece of news that we have is that I've actually moved my little box over here to the this bottom left corner because people tell me when I put up charts on screen that usually the most important information is on the right side of the chart. So for example, if I jump in over here and I don't know, I jump into housing disaster or whatever, like the more relevant information is on the right. And they're kind of not wrong about that, so thank you. But anyway, apparently Apple News was either hacked or there was a failure of governance, and this company called Fast Company was able to send a push notification to Apple News users, to Apple Watches and Apple phones with the following, N Tung Mai A, so-and-so was here. Yeah, that was the push notification. So that's a little bit more on the drama side. You could see that full image with plenty of sources on Twitter. But what's actually more interesting to me is the financial news that's going on with Apple, and unfortunately it's not that great. Now look, I love Apple and I think they're a phenomenal company, but the surge of orders they were expecting for the iPhone 14, and yes, I'm holding up an iPhone 14 case because even though I ordered mine on the morning of the release of orders, I still have only received the case and not the actual phone yet. But anyway, the anticipated surge of demand for the new iPhone 14 did not happen. Apple told suppliers, according to Bloomberg, to withdraw or slow down, I should say, efforts to actually increase assembly of the iPhone 14. In fact, initially, we were thinking that Apple might go from a level of 90 million sales of iPhones, which is basically the 2021 level. We were thinking that Apple might be able to go to 96 million this year and potentially even boost production about 7% on top of that. So maybe as high as 102 to 103 million phones. This was sort of projected before the iPhone 14 launch event. And even though earlier this summer, Apple's like, oh, we hope to be sort of in line with this, there was a lot of optimism and hope that right before the event, they're like, okay, no, this is a good product. We're probably going to kill it on sales. Well, unfortunately, that didn't end up happening. And we didn't get 102 to 103. Now we're actually cutting production from 96 down to 90, which will be in line with 2021. Keep in mind that if we end up going even slightly negative on revenue year over year for Apple by as much as $1, we will be at the start of an earnings recession for Apple, which has already begun for Nike. So this is quite interesting. There is also a note that some suppliers who were manufacturing the regular iPhone 14 are now moving to the iPhone 14 Pro. Chinese sales are down 11% for the iPhone 14. That's compared to last year's iPhone 13 model. And the entire smartphone market is expected to shrink by 6.5%. So China shrinking by almost double that, but the entire market shrinking by about 6.5%, which is roughly in line with Tesla. Sorry, not Tesla, which is roughly in line with Apple's decline. I just did a Tesla video. Okay, so my head's still somewhat over there. One thing, though, that is very interesting, that's different between Apple and Tesla, is that Apple actually has a very rigorous currency hedging scheme, and we do not expect as much of a currency impact to Apple as we did over at Tesla. Watch my Tesla video for a little bit more insight into new projections there that I've brought out for Tesla, so you'll want to see those and enjoy those. But it's worth noting that China has definitely a stake in Apple's revenue. I mean, look at this here. When you look at Apple's net sales, 45% comes from America and 17.8% comes from China. So a reduction here could mean across the board somewhere around 2% decline in earnings if everything else just stayed flat, and you could be in that earnings recession almost solely because of China. Now, we'll see what ends up happening with Apple. But overall, obviously, I'm a big fan of Apple. I just want to be very clear about that. I love Apple, and the entire market is slowing down. It makes sense that we're in an earnings recession, and the second half of the year is just expected to be slower than Apple had hoped. But now I want to just take the opportunity to spend a few minutes in talking about, well, first I'm going to talk about this. So I actually have 2 iPhones. And one of the beautiful things about this that I haven't really talked about on the channel yet is I'm actually a big fan of the eSIM, which is where you can essentially have 2 SIM cards on each device. So I have in this hand an iPhone 13 and in this hand an iPhone 12. I'm just going to be upfront here and say I do not notice a difference in performance between the 2 whatsoever. I use the 2 almost interchangeably. They operate roughly at the same speeds. It used to be back in the day when I got my first iPhone 1, when we were back on the Edge networks, and we went from the iPhone 1 to the iPhone 3G and 4G. There was never a 2G, right? You know, it used to be like you'd be like, oh my gosh, the old phone is trash, the new one's so much better. You're getting less and less of that. Obviously, when and not that I've actually noticed a difference, but when I choose to film videos, I do gravitate towards using the 13, but I would say for most people, most practical purposes, like the iPhone 12 is just totally fine. I will say that the leather wallet, this is now my second leather wallet for the iPhone 13, and I'm a little bit disappointed in this leather wallet. So let me see if I can get the camera to focus on this a little bit here. But what I want you to notice is if we do get focus here, is you see that edging there on the wallet? It's very like sort of decayed leather. And it's a little bit unfortunate because I would have really liked a more quality product for the leather wallet. And it does wear off pretty quickly. The same is true of the wallet, which I think is quite unfortunate that you do get that wear. And this is my second in a year. So within 6 months, you're expecting pretty solid decay on these. I will also say that over time, the wallet does kind of loosen and then your cards can slip out of it, which is also something that's very frustrating. But I mean, I have to say, like, that is like, it just makes me seem like a filthy person with how dirty that wallet looks. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just, ugh. Looking at it closely now, I'm a little bit disappointed in this as a product. Yet here I am still buying the leather case for the next phone. That's just nonsense and stupid, but that's what I did. So I also am a big fan of the Apple AirTags. So again, do I really think it's necessary to upgrade the phones? No, I think really the reason, before I get to AirTags, the reason you're seeing people migrate to the iPhone Pro model more so than the basic iPhone model is because I really think the people who are buying these new phones are people who are techies, who want the latest and greatest, or have some form of technical purpose, like they're videographers or photographers or whatever, and they want them, right? I think that's very critical to address. Now, I actually don't have them in my spot. So I have a little hook. Before I talk about AirTags, I'll just say I have a little hook for the Apple Pro headsets, and I'll just pull up a picture of them so you know what I'm talking about. You should already know what I'm talking about. Not the little earbuds, but the Apple Pro headsets. I have to say, the Apple Pro Maxes, they are so good. They are probably one of my favorite purchases at Apple, to the point where I've actually bought 2 of them. The reason for that is when I wear these, the band at the top is so comfortable, I could wear it for extended periods of time without my head hurting. So I want to be clear here, this is not an ad for Apple, right? I'm not sponsored by Apple. I just, I buy a lot of Apple products. What I'm using right now here is an iPad. I've got, you know, a MacBook Pro here. I've got the MacBook Pro M1 over here. I've got the MacBook Air M2 that I just bought while I was in Seattle. That M2 Air is so light, and it's so good, just off the shelf the way it is. Very, very impressive. Very, very impressed with the quality of products. But I am a big fan of iPads. I don't know if you can tell that here. But what I do want to say is I'm a big fan as well of an iPad in its place for different purposes. So when I travel, I like to travel light, and I love the iPad mini. The iPad mini here is so light, and it's so great. Really, it's kind of like a larger phone, but you get the Apple Pencil capability. And I'm the person who reads all the freaking time. I'm always reading, and I use the Apple Pencil and GoodNotes. That's what I do, whether I'm reading earnings statements or what. This is what it looks like. This is just the functionality of GoodNotes. I take out my little Apple Pencil here, and I go in here and I highlight. I go in here and I like to draw little boxes, right? I love this. Like this to me makes my life so simple and so happy. Really, really big fan of the Apple ecosystem for the iPads. However, I am also a big fan of having versatility in my iPad. So for example, here in the studio, I use the mid-sized iPad. This is the one that you just saw on screen right here. And relative to the iPad mini, you can see that the mini is quite a chunk smaller here. And what I really like about the small one, again, is that travel factor. When I fly, I generally have a backpack and like a Pelican for equipment. And that's when I'm just going carry-on mode, like when I'm traveling for HouseHack, which is my real estate startup. If you don't yet know about that and you're an accredited investor, we've got a big deadline coming up on Friday. Make sure you go to househack.com, read the prospectus, and learn more about my real estate startup. But anyway, beside that point, I really value carrying or having a light a travel outfit, and I don't need the camera, so that doesn't matter so much. I got this in Starlight is what the color is called. I don't know if you'd actually be able to tell the difference between Starlight here and actually this is green. Yeah, there you go. You can actually see that difference right there. So kind of cool. So I really like that. I do get the LTE or 5G or whatever service on my iPads as well, since I do travel with them. Generally, though, lately it's this last one that I travel with. It's so good. I think I forgot to mention with the phones, and this is the downside of me not editing, but I'm going back to it. I have a dual SIM, the eSIM, on each of these phones. So I actually have 4 SIM services. And so the reason I have 4 is so that when I do YouTube videos, I can upload them hopefully on one of the 4 cellular services that I have. I hate being somewhere and not being able to upload videos. Sometimes I'll go, and this is like so bad in like the tech world, but sometimes I'll even upload videos in like 720p because I'm at the airport and I'm like, I gotta get this video out. Just put them out in 720. I mean, that's, you know, like your base model kind of like HD, right? Your like discount HD. I guess some people call it SD now. Anyway, this is my favorite iPad when I'm not traveling. This iPad is way too heavy to travel with. When you add the Magic Keyboard here, it gets so freaking heavy. This is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 pounds. This, I would guess, weighs more than I believe the 2.7 pound MacBook Air M2, which is insane. I got that in Starlight, by the way. But anyway, this is heavy, and the keyboard is good. Like this, I mean, when you don't need a computer and you're just doing notes and you're preparing notes for like you know, a video, or I'm doing GoodNotes and I just want to type, or I'm in the studio here, I've got one of these keyboards for the large iPad Pro, the middle iPad, because these are usually what I use in the studio. But I did not get one for my iPad mini. You could see the size difference here. And the reason I didn't get one for the iPad mini, I mean, gosh, that's like twice the size, twice the real estate. The reason I didn't get one for the mini is, again, this is for traveling, and I really don't want the extra weight of this keyboard. But the keyboard's very expensive, but it's very good. I got one in black, one in white. And I have to say, you know, even though it's white, for the time I've had it, it's actually held up pretty decently. So not bad. Not bad at all. Now, I did buy the latest Apple Watch. The reason I bought the latest Apple Watch is because I run a lot, and not that I really need another watch just for running, but I'm a big fan of exercise. But the problem is when I exercise, the Apple Watches that I have, which I actually have this little mount for my little, what are these things called? My little earbud things from Apple. It holds that, and then it holds my 2 watches, which is really convenient. One is synced to my iPhone 12, one is synced to my iPhone 13. And what I notice is I kind of need both of them, because if I start working out early in the morning, I put this on at like 6 a.m. By 2 o'clock, one of the watches is dead, and then I'm like, well, that sucks. And then I end up switching to my other, watch, and I kind of am exhausted with switching watches. So I'm hoping this newer, larger watch lets me have one watch on all day long rather than having to switch between the two, because usually I just end up forgetting to switch and then I walk around with a dead watch, and that's no fun. Like, what's the point of that? I catch myself looking at my watch and I'm like, oh, there's nothing there. Okay, then you might be wondering why I got these. I have 4 iPads here that just came in. So these are actually the 10.2-inch 9th generation iPads. These are the cheapies. They're $399, the base model 64 GB iPads. And the reason I have 4 of these is because I'm going to be mounting one at my front door, one at my back door, and then at my office, one at the front door and one at the back door. And we're going to use them as sort of a camera monitor, so we can always see what's going on around the property and kind of like finger swipe between them. So I didn't want to spend, I think this was probably like $800 or $900 for this mini one. You know, the other one's probably like $1,100, $1,200, and the big Pro is like $1,500, $1,600. It's insane. Plus you add the keyboard. I mean, it really gets up there. So $399, you get a brand new one of these. Actually isn't that terrible for an iPad. $399, it's crazy. But they don't like pitch that on the website. So if you don't have an iPad and you're like, I kind of want an iPad, $399 doesn't seem like a good deal. I do also have this. This is my Bloomberg Terminal login fob. I've got some other junk on here. But I put an Apple AirTag on this because I do not want to lose my Bloomberg Terminal key. And generally, I keep my Bloomberg Terminal key on my backpack anyway. Just when I go from the office to home or whatever, I like to keep this all in here. So it's always nice to kind of know where that is. And the AirTag will actually make noise if you want it to ping. So I have to say, I'm like consumed with the Apple environment. That doesn't mean I'm like 100% Apple. I do have Windows computers. I definitely game on Windows computers. I also use Windows computers for server operations, like cameras or whatever. I think there are some things that are just a little frustrating on Apple, that Apple just hasn't streamlined or doesn't have compatibility with yet for as many developers. So I do have a combination of both. But yeah, this gives you a little bit of a look inside sort of the world of Kevin when it comes to Apple. I'm a big Apple nut. Apple was my first Tesla, so to speak, where, I've been investing in Apple since 2011, 2010, something like that, maybe even earlier. It could have been like 09. I don't exactly remember when I started buying my first shares. But it was a long time ago. It was just while I was still in high school. Well, I guess I graduated high school in 10, so it was before that. But anyway, yeah, Apple was an amazing ride. And I actually can't really say anything terrible about Apple. I think if Apple goes down on all this production news or whatever, or they enter an earnings recession, we have some negative growth with Apple, I think it would just be a buying opportunity for a company that you really just want to own and not look back on. Of course, I can't give you financial advice. I am becoming a licensed financial advisor, but I can't give you financial advice. So I just want to be clear. Pretty much everything that I said in this video is my opinion, with the exception of the data that I gave you from Bloomberg. And that is also, I think, based on sort of a leak. So who knows? Apple could come out tomorrow and say that's not true. They probably won't, because they generally don't respond to that kind of stuff. But they did say that the notification was a mistake, and that Fast Company was apparently hacked, and Apple News has disabled their channel. Here you go. To be clear, this video is not paid for. I don't even have affiliate links linked down below, but that's okay. I do have a course on building your wealth, multiple of them, linked down below. Check those out using the coupon code, also expiring Friday, along with going to househack.com to learn about my startup. Thanks so much. Goodbye.